You know that feeling when you are sitting in a one-on-one meeting with your manager and you just know you have been doing stellar work?
Oh, yeah. Like, you were long overdue for a raise.
Right. You take a breath, you finally open your mouth to advocate for yourself, and your mind just goes completely blank.
It is the absolute worst. Your throat tightens and the words just evaporate.
Exactly. And you find yourself just staring at your coffee mug, completely frozen, trying not to panic.
Well, I mean, it is a universally uncomfortable human experience to ask for money, right?
It really is.
But when you are trying to navigate that specific conversation in a second language, it's so much harder. You are carrying not just the emotional weight of your own livelihood, but the mental load of finding the exact phrasing required in English.
Oh, absolutely. And that freeze response doesn't just double, it magnifies tenfold, which is exactly why we are diving into this today.
Yes. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Our mission for this session is to really help you master the emotionally loaded language of money, compensation, and salary negotiations in English.
Because the stakes here are so much higher than just feeling a little awkward in a Zoom meeting,
Definitely. We are pulling from a highly comprehensive guide on English money talk at work, and the reality is stark.
It really is.
Yeah.
The inability to talk about money confidently has a direct, measurable, and compounding impact on your career trajectory.
Yeah, the language you use or fail to use in a 5-minute conversation can literally alter your lifelong income.
To ground this, our source material shares 2 incredibly relatable real-world stories that perfectly illustrate the cost of not having the right vocabulary.
Right, first there's Alex. So Alex was a top performer. He led this massive project, saved his company weeks of time, brought in a new key client, and basically took on the responsibilities of someone 2 levels above him.
That is a massive amount of value to add.
Huge. And in his native language, he knew exactly how to pitch his value. But in English,
Let me guess. He froze.
he totally froze. He didn't know how to initiate the conversation without sounding demanding or, arrogant. So he just waited for 8 agonizing months.
Oh, wow. 8 months of delivering higher-level business results for lower-level pay simply because of a vocabulary gap.
Exactly. And when he finally did muster the courage to ask and actually got the raise, he walked out of the room feeling like he just got lucky.
He didn't feel like a prepared professional who knew his worth. He felt like he survived a gamble.
Yeah, which brings us to Jamie's story. Jamie gets a fantastic new job offer, but the salary they present is about 15% below the standard market rate she had researched.
Okay, so she knows it's low.
Right. But she panicked. She was so terrified of sounding greedy in English and so afraid they would pull the offer entirely if she pushed back that she just accepted the first number on the spot.
Oh no. She left 15% on the table for an entire year.
For an entire year.
Those stories anchor our discussion perfectly because they highlight the core reality of professional life. Salary negotiation is a specialized skill that relies on highly specific language.
And the moment you equip yourself with the mechanics of that vocabulary, the fear practically vanishes. You stop relying on luck and you start relying on strategy.
But before we get into the exact scripts and phrases you should be using, we really need to look at the psychology of why people like Alex and Jamie freeze in the first place.
Right, because looking at this material, it's clearly not just a simple translation problem. It is a massive cultural and emotional hurdle.
Money is arguably the most emotionally loaded topic in human interaction. In many cultures around the world, talking openly about your salary or asking for more money is heavily stigmatized.
Yeah, it's considered rude or boastful or frankly just embarrassing. You are taught to keep your head down, do good work, and wait to be recognized.
But the source text makes it very clear that in English-speaking professional cultures, waiting to be recognized is a losing strategy.
It's actually the exact opposite of what is expected.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. In international English-speaking corporate environments, discussing your compensation is fully expected. Companies build their annual hiring budgets with the assumption that candidates will negotiate.
And managers expect their top-tier employees to advocate for themselves.
Right. The danger here is how that cultural silence is interpreted. If you stay silent because your cultural background taught you that silence equals modesty, a Western corporate manager isn't reading it that way at all.
They interpret it as a deficit. An international manager doesn't see your silence as humility. They often view it as a lack of confidence or a failure to understand your own market value.
Or even just a lack of general business acumen.
It's sort of like showing up to a tennis match.
Yeah.
Right? The other person serves the ball over the net. You just stand there refusing to swing your racket because you think hitting the ball back is impolite.
That is a perfect analogy. The game of business requires you to swing the racket.
But I think the reason people keep their racket down is the fear of getting the tone wrong. It is a very fine line. How do you advocate for yourself without sounding like you're just complaining?
That brings us to the first major vocabulary shift our source introduces. We have to completely reframe the word negotiate.
Because when people hear negotiation, they picture a courtroom battle. They picture two people across a table making hostile demands.
Right, but in a corporate context, to negotiate is simply to have a formal discussion to reach an agreement that works for both sides. It is a collaborative puzzle.
So you and your manager are on the same side of the table trying to figure out how to align your value with the company's budget.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we accept that negotiation is a collaborative puzzle and it's expected, how do you actually initiate this conversation when you are already working in a role? Like, Alex sat there paralyzed for 8 months. How do you tactfully bring it up?
Well, the art of the raise begins long before you schedule the meeting. It begins with timing. The structural timing of a raise request can dictate the outcome before you even speak.
Our source lists good times and bad times. The natural, expected time is during an annual performance review. But it also mentions asking after a clear win, right?
Yes. Like Alex finishing that massive project, or when you've suddenly absorbed the responsibilities of someone who left the company.
So the mechanism of timing is a lot like surfing. You don't paddle frantically for a wave when the water is perfectly flat.
You paddle when you feel the momentum of the ocean already lifting you. Finishing a massive, highly profitable project provides that momentum.
On the flip side, trying to surf during a company-wide budget freeze or right after your department missed its quarterly targets means you are paddling in flat water.
You are setting yourself up to fail, regardless of your personal performance.
Let's talk about the preparation you need before you catch that wave. The source heavily emphasizes two vital corporate terms: benchmark and market rate.
A benchmark is simply a standard or reference point used for comparison. To benchmark your salary means to measure what you currently make against the standard data for your specific job title.
Factoring in your years of experience and your geographic location, right?
Exactly, which naturally leads to the market rate. That is the objective financial value of the job in the current economy.
So not what your specific manager feels like paying you, but what it would cost them to hire someone off the street to do your exact job.
Knowing your market rate fundamentally changes the psychology of the conversation. You transition your argument from a subjective, emotional feeling of, I think I deserve more, into an objective, data-driven statement.
Something like, the market data shows this role is compensated at this level.
Precisely.
But wait, I want to push back on this reliance on market data for a second, because the guide explicitly calls out a very common mistake.
Mistake number 3.
Yeah. What if my rent just went up by 20%? What if inflation is crushing my commute costs? Why can't I go to my boss and explain the real human reason I need more money?
It is the most natural human instinct to want to explain your personal hardship, but it is a fatal error in negotiation. Your personal financial situation, your rent, your mortgage, your commute is structurally irrelevant to your employer.
Which sounds incredibly cold.
It sounds cold, but it is the mechanical reality of a business exchange. The employer is making a calculation about the value of your labor and the tangible results you bring to the company.
So when you bring up your rent, you inadvertently signal that you don't understand how business works.
Right. Your argument must rest entirely on objective market data and your specific measurable results. How much money did you save the company? How much revenue did you generate?
Okay, so personal expenses are completely off the table. Let's role play the actual meeting. I've scheduled the time. I sit down with my manager. Our source says mistake number 1 is opening with, can you give me more money?
And mistake number 2 is, my salary is too low.
Right. Why do both of those fail?
Because of positioning. Can you give me more money? It sounds like a child asking a parent for a weekly allowance. It hands all the power over.
And my salary is too low is just a complaint, which immediately triggers a defensive posture in your manager.
Exactly. You want to open professionally with, I'd like to discuss my compensation.
For listeners who might just equate that word with their biweekly paycheck, we need to unpack compensation. It encompasses so much more than just the cash hitting your bank account, right?
Oh, absolutely. Compensation refers to your total reward package. That includes your base salary, but it also includes your annual bonuses, your health insurance coverage, retirement contributions, and equity.
Meaning literal ownership shares in the company. So using the word compensation signals to your manager that you possess a sophisticated understanding of the full financial picture.
Yes. So you open with, I'd like to discuss my compensation. You frame it positively, saying, I really value working on this team. You present your evidence of the value you've created.
And then you ask for a specific range based on your benchmark research. This brings us to what the source calls the golden rule of the salary pitch.
And it is entirely behavioral.
You state your number or your range, and then you just stop talking.
You state the number, and you embrace the silence.
I can feel the anxiety of that silence just thinking about it. My immediate instinct would be to fill the void.
Most people do.
I would say I was hoping we could discuss something in the range of 80,000, but I know budgets are tight right now, so whatever you can do is fine. I would completely negotiate against myself just to relieve the awkwardness.
Which is what a vast majority of professionals do. They panic in the silence. But you have to understand the psychology of what is happening in that quiet moment.
The hot potato effect, right?
Exactly. The silence acts like a conversational hot potato. By stating your data-backed number and closing your mouth, you are passing the pressure of a response entirely onto the manager.
You let them be the one to figure out how to respond to the undeniable facts you just laid out. That is a brilliant way to look at it.
But what happens if the manager catches the potato and says, look, your work is undeniable, but we have a strict company-wide freeze right now. I simply cannot approve a raise.
You handle the pushback gracefully, but you do not retreat. You pivot to setting a timeline.
Right. You reply, I understand the current constraints. Is there a timeline we could set for revisiting this, perhaps in 3 to 6 months?
And what specific targets would support a review at that point?
So you're locking them into a future structural commitment. You're turning a flat no into not right now, but here is the exact roadmap to get to yes.
That makes perfect sense because you have a track record at that company to leverage. But that makes me think about Jamie's panic. She didn't have a track record yet because that was a brand new job offer.
Where does your power come from when you're starting at zero?
The dynamic of a new job offer requires a slightly different approach, but the need for professional, objective language remains identical.
And it begins with rule number 1 of job offers. Never accept the first offer immediately in the room.
Which is mistake number 5 in the guide. But if a company offers you the exact number you dreamed of, shouldn't you just lock it in and say yes enthusiastically?
You should express enthusiasm, definitely, but still pause. Employers almost universally build a financial buffer into their initial offer.
So if you accept instantly, the hiring manager's first thought isn't always great. It's often, did we offer too much?
Right. By pausing, you ensure you aren't leaving money on the table. The standard professional response is, thank you so much. I am thrilled about this opportunity. Could I have a couple of days to review the full package?
That buys you the time to build your case. You use that time to look at your message.
Leverage is the power or advantage that gives you the ability to influence a negotiation.
Since Jamie doesn't have a history at this new company, her leverage would be external things, like possessing a highly specialized skill set that took them 6 months to find.
Or holding a competing job offer from a rival company.
Correct. Leverage is not about applying hostile pressure or making threats. It's just the honest, objective information about your value in the marketplace. You use that leverage to construct your counteroffer.
Okay, I want to try and construct a counteroffer because the guide points out that bluntly demanding a mistake, number 6, saying I want 85,000 is way too aggressive.
Right, so if I want to soften the demand, maybe I don't use the word want. Maybe I frame it around my research, like the market data says I need 85,000.
Wait, no, that still sounds like I'm giving an ultimatum. How do you actually formulate that question so it feels like a collaboration?
You are on the right track by avoiding demands. You want to sandwich your request between enthusiasm and curiosity.
You reiterate your excitement for the role, you reference your benchmark data, and then you ask an open-ended question.
I'm very enthusiastic about this role. Based on my experience in the market read I've researched, I was hoping we could discuss something in the range of 85,000.
Is there flexibility in the compensation package?
Yes. Is there flexibility in the compensation package? That corrects mistake number 4, which is bluntly asking, is the salary fixed? It removes the confrontation entirely. It's an inquiry.
And by using a range rather than a single rigid number, you signal that you are reasonable and open to a dialogue. It invites them to meet you in the middle.
Let's say they come back and use that intimidating corporate phrase. The salary is non-negotiable. As an international candidate, my instinct would be that I offended them and the door is closed.
It is crucial to understand the structural mechanics behind the phrase non-negotiable. In Western corporate HR, companies use strict internal pay band policies.
This means human resources has a literal mathematical cap on what a level 3 marketing manager can make. The hiring manager physically cannot approve a base salary above that grid, no matter how much they love your interview.
Exactly. Non-negotiable isn't a personal rejection. It is a structural reality of their payroll system.
That changes the perspective entirely. So if the base pay is mathematically locked, the immediate move is to pivot to what is flexible, the rest of the compensation package.
Okay, if the base salary is fixed, would there be flexibility on securing an extra week of paid time off? Or a professional development budget for conferences?
Or requesting an accelerated performance review. Would it be possible to schedule a formal salary review after 6 months, rather than the standard 12, assuming I hit all my onboarding targets?
You secure the path to the higher salary sooner, circumventing the immediate pay band limit.
Getting that initial compensation package right gets you through the door. But the deep dive into English money talk doesn't stop on your hire date. We need to look at the final section of our source material because you have to handle daily financial discussions professionally too.
The language of money permeates every aspect of corporate life. Whether you are managing a project, talking to clients, or working as a freelancer, there is a specialized vocabulary for everyday financial operations.
Our source provides a fantastic toolkit for this. Let's break down some of these terms because they often confuse non-native speakers.
When discussing internal budgets, you might hear, "We're working within a fairly tight budget this quarter," or "This would need sign-off from finance before we can proceed."
Let's look at that phrase, sign-off from finance. To get sign-off means to get formal, official approval.
But psychologically, when a manager says, "I need sign-off from finance," they are employing a very common corporate shield. It allows them to delay a decision or ultimately say no without being the bad guy.
They preserve their interpersonal relationship with you by blaming a faceless administrative department, a psychological scapegoat. That makes so much sense.
What about when you are dealing externally with pricing and clients?
Use standard established phrasing to convey authority. Our standard rate for this service is X. Or, would you like me to put together a detailed quote for you? A quote being an estimated price for a specific job.
Then there are payment terms. This is the bane of every freelancer's existence. The source mentions the phrase, "We typically invoice on a 30-day net basis."
For listeners who haven't dealt with vendor invoicing, what does net 30 actually mean in practice?
Net 30 simply means the client has a 30-day grace period from the date the invoice is issued to pay the full amount. It sets a clear legal expectation for cash flow.
Which leads to the most awkward situation of all, when that 30 days passes and they haven't paid you.
The impulse is to send an email saying, "Where is my money? You are late."
But the source suggests asking, is there anything holding up the payment on your end? Why is that softer phrasing so much more effective?
Because it provides the client with a face saving out. When you ask if something is holding up the payment, you aren't accusing them of ignoring you or stealing from you.
You are politely suggesting there might just be an administrative glitch in their accounting software.
Exactly. It allows them to apologize and pay you without feeling attacked, while still firmly enforcing your professional boundary.
It's all about preserving the working relationship. Finally, when discussing the outcome of how money was spent, we see phrases like, "We came in under budget," meaning you spent less than allocated.
Or, "The ROI was stronger than expected." ROI being return on investment, how much value you got back for the money spent.
Notice the overarching theme in all of these everyday phrases. Standard rate, tight budget, 30-day net, ROI. They're completely emotionally detached.
They are objective, operational, and standardized.
That is the ultimate takeaway here. When you ask for a raise or negotiate a job offer, you shouldn't be using the emotional language of personal need. No, "I want," "I deserve," or "my rent went up."
You should borrow the detached, objective language of daily business operations. You frame yourself as a high ROI asset navigating market rates and benchmark data.
By removing the emotion and replacing it with evidence-based corporate vocabulary, you neutralize the fear. You are no longer begging for a favor, you are conducting a standard business transaction.
Which means you deserve to be compensated fairly, and you absolutely deserve to have the linguistic tools to advocate for that compensation.
The paralyzing fear that Alex and Jamie felt goes away the moment you realize negotiation is just another procedural conversation with a specific script.
When you internalize this language, you reclaim your power. You transition from hoping to get lucky to being prepared to collaborate effectively.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. Think about your own career trajectory right at this moment.
How much of your professional growth has genuinely been limited by your actual technical skills or work ethic?
And how much has simply been limited by not having the exact vocabulary to confidently ask for what you're objectively worth?
Think back to that image we started with. Sitting in the meeting, your throat tightening, freezing when the topic of money comes up.
If you had this objective, emotionally detached script in front of you today, what conversation would you initiate tomorrow?
Talk English Daily. Subscribe for new episodes